We just saw Gone Girl, and on this show I take my friends, we go see a movie, we do a review in the car, and then we have a discussion. The review part is spoiler free, so if you're on the fence and trying to decide whether you should see this movie, watch that first half. If you've already seen the movie and want to know what we thought, or don't care to see the movie and just want to hear everything, watch the second half, which may contain spoilers. So Gone Girl is a adaptation of a book. It was very faithfully adapted. I read the book, and the screenplay is written by the same author, Gillian Flynn. It's a really well done adaptation. This isn't a book that I would have really expected to translate well to the screen, just because of the way that it's laid out. Kind of and I won't get into this before we get into the spoiler section, but the layout of the book is very interesting. It's a very clever way to set up this mystery and set up the twists that happen in the mystery part of the story. And they pull that off incredibly well. So if you've read the book and you're nervous or you're kind of, worried that they don't do a very good job of adapting that, I would say don't worry about that. If you enjoy the book, you'll probably enjoy the movie as well. All the performances are very good. I like David Fincher as a filmmaker in general. I think he did a fine job on this. The soundtrack is very good, understated. Pretty much everything that I could have hoped for from this movie is in there. It is long, and it seems like, if you haven't read the book and you go into this and you expect kind of a typical mystery, it will kind of feel weird that it keeps going at certain points. And that's, again, a callback to how faithful of an adaptation it is, that it doesn't really have necessarily the standard structure that you would expect from a movie. It seems like it should be over a couple of times, but not in a bad way. It's like there's more to the story, and it gets more interesting and more things to say. So anyway, that's my review. I would really recommend it to any fans of mystery, and certainly anyone that's enjoyed the book and wants to see the big screen version. What do you guys think?
I absolutely loved it. It just from start to finish, it was great. The pacing was great. The storyline was excellent. I can't just begin to say how awesome the performances were. I think Affleck nailed it, and so did Rosamund Pike. Even some of the side characters were really fleshed out very well. I just absolutely loved it. And the soundtrack, again, Trent Reznor, great job. Great job.
What you guys think?
I liked it. It's a very adult film, in the real sense. It's it's a grown-up film. It was good. The directing was good. It's got that David Fincher kind of meticulous but slightly bland, but totally it's all about the story type feel to it. Mm-hmm. It was I have never read the book, so obviously for me there was a lot of twists and turns. The very, very end, though, was a bit of a dud for me, given that I was so excited to see where things were going. But overall, I can't really complain. It's definitely worth a watch. It's slow, but it's really good.
Yeah, and we'll get into the ending after the break, for sure.
I liked it a lot. I read the book. I thought it was they did a really good job of knowing what to adapt for the movie, because sometimes you see something and they can check the box and say, yes, it's a faithful adaptation, but it doesn't make a good movie. Here, it was a good movie. Mm-hmm. I thought that the performances were great. I thought, in particular, the two leads, they were fantastic, but the two that really stood out to me, I don't even know the actresses' names, but Ben Affleck's character's twin sister, I thought she was fantastic, and then the lead detective, I thought she was fantastic.
Kim Dickens was fantastic.
Those to me were the two standout performances. There were also
they all felt like real people.
Yeah, they really did.
Yeah,
these weren't bad performances, but there was a neighbor character who I've only seen this actress in one other thing, and it's a sitcom called Happy Endings, and she played a really wacky character on that show, and she played a somewhat wacky character here, and she just felt, even though she's a good actress, felt somewhat miscast to me whenever I saw her. It just felt like, ooh, she's just a little bit too larger for life for this type of movie. And I felt almost the same about Neil Patrick Harris, because even though I like him, he's just, you look at
He's
him and you
always
see
Neil
Neil
Patrick
Patrick Harris.
Harris.
Yeah, so the two of those, even though they gave good performances, they felt a little bit off to me. And the only other thing I'll say that's kind of spoiler free is, you guys have talked about the soundtrack. I thought it was great, but I also thought that there was something, maybe it was just me, just with the sound editing, that I noticed, particularly in the flashback scenes near the beginning. The soundtrack was almost too loud compared to the dialogue. Some of the lines were really, really hard to hear.
Yeah.
And anytime they would go to flashback, they would have kind of the same soundtrack playing, and so you'd have the characters talking, the soundtrack, and whatever background noise. Like one time they were at a party, and I was like, I can hear maybe every other word they say. And it was really odd, and it was just kind of during these flashback scenes that they chose to employ that. And I think they should have just done a little bit different sound mixing there.
That's a great way to segue, because my opinion on that is a spoiler. And so this is the point to tune out. If you haven't read the book or seen the movie, please don't let us spoil any of it for you. This is a great story. It's a great book. It's worth reading. It's a great movie. It's worth seeing. Do both in whatever order you want. I picked up on what you were saying as well, and I was watching it at the beginning, trying to figure out if they were consciously doing things to give you clues that you were watching flashbacks, because there were some points where it wasn't completely clear that it was a flashback into the past. It was, or what the timing was, like how far back it was. And it seemed to me that things that were true memories had less of that sort of overbearing soundtrack, and things that were her invented memories from the diary had this almost like, rom-com sort of like dun 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 dun, dun, like happy, romantic music.
But the ones I noticed it the most on were the ones that were actually the true memories, like from the party scene at the beginning. Yeah, but I do think that's a good point, though. I mean, I think it may specifically have been the kind of cloudy dialogue versus cloudy truth.
Yeah, and they weren't, they weren't giving away anything either. It wasn't like, they weren't going to like black and white or something, really obvious as to what was where. So yeah, I mean, to start digging into the spoiler size of things and how things worked out, I did want to mention too, and I just didn't get around to it a minute ago, but Tyler Perry's in this movie. He's actually pretty good.
Yeah.
I've seen him in a couple of things where when he's not directing himself, he actually can play the characters pretty well, and he did a good job, I think, in this too. And I always liked Kim Dickens. She was the Rhonda, the lead detective. But we've seen a bunch of adaptations this year, a bunch of book adaptations.
Yeah, lots.
And this one, I think, did a really, really good job of making a movie that, even at 2.5 hours, for people that haven't read the book, it's still a good movie. Yeah. It's not catering to the fans by including scenes that the fans want to see. It's still telling more. It's telling a story that we want to see, even as in a film version. Mm-hmm. It flew by for me. I mean, by the time that she got home, it felt like we were at like the 100-minute, 120 maybe minute mark, and as far as like the way that they pulled off the twist. I mean, I know you guys. Like that was the first twist, that she's still alive, mm-hmm. and that she
It was pretty sudden. It's like, whoa, yeah, there
I
we go.
assumed she was still alive, but I didn't expect the reveal to be so quick. I thought that would be the end.
I also liked how quickly they went through how she planned everything out.
Yeah, that was really well done.
That, I mean, and it was just rapid fire. Just here's what I did. Here's what I did.
Which is
and-
pretty good because it didn't feel like there was much missing. There wasn't like a bunch of holes in it. It was like it was pretty satisfying.
I mean, they could have
Yeah.
done it with a lot of audience hand holding, and rather than take one half a sentence to explain something, they could have taken a whole 5-minute explanation for each one, and they didn't feel the need to do that. They just went through it real quickly.
Yep.
They also didn't like use it as a button on every scene. Like they didn't, they didn't reveal that she was alive and then wait like 5 minutes and say, "Well, here's how I did this,"
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
cut back and forth between her and like an interrogation or some other
Yeah.
kind of style of telling that part of the story, which I have to give credit to Gillian Flynn because the book is very it has that duality where there's a Nick chapter and there's an Amy chapter, and the way that the movie is structured, it kind of does the same thing where it switches back and forth, but it takes large pieces of the book, let's say 3 chapters at a time, and it just bounces in scenes between the two, to get to where it's going. So you have a Nick scene, and it might be 90 seconds, and then you have an Amy scene and it's 40 seconds, and then it tells the story very convincingly and very quickly.
And I haven't read the book, but for me as a film, it still worked.
Yeah.
It made me engaged. Yeah.
The pacing was so great. Like,
And that was the thing I was the most worried about. I guess that's what I'm getting at, is that like the chapter by chapter thing, I wasn't sure how they were going to make that
yeah.
work.
I mean, it was what, 2.5 hours? Didn't
2 hours,
feel-
20 minutes.
Well, it did to
feel
me.
at all.
It did feel long to me. Not that long. I thought maybe it was like almost hitting the 2-hour mark, but it was like I enjoyed it though. So it wasn't like I was aware it was a long film. It didn't fly by for me, but it was good stuff.
It
Yeah.
felt like 2 films to me. Like,
Right.
to the point that she is alive, and then what happens after the reveal.
It's almost
that she's
episodic after
alive.
that.
Yeah.
Well, and the length is more in keeping with something like a miniseries, or a 3
Yeah.
a 3 episode miniseries kind of event
Yeah.
where you've got we think she's gone, and then we've got
Yeah.
she's alive.
You could almost fade out
and
at
then-
those points and create like chapters and. Yeah.
Well, I mean, the way they structured the film, I mean, they basically made the 3 acts that she's missing, we don't know where she is. Then there's, we do know where she is, and she orchestrated this whole thing. And the 3rd act is, she's back, and what are we going to do about it?
Yeah, although this is one of those films where it doesn't really fit into a 3-act structure. It's more like a 5-act or something,
No, I agree. I agree that it's like that. But, like, if you were... If it weren't a movie, if you were breaking it apart into episodes,
Yeah.
that would be kind of the
Yeah.
the feel of it.
Yeah. Which is
and-
great. I love it when movies like play with structure and like, but it's still engaging and it's
Well,
still-
and
it's not messy.
to give another example, like the adaptation of the John Green book,
Fault in Our Stars.
Fault in Our Stars. Fault in Our Stars feels like a 5-act movie, but it's because they're being so faithful to the text that they didn't like adapt it enough into the structure that it's fitting into. So there seems like there's extra scenes, or there seems like there's an extra bit that is tacked on, or an extra bit that's sort of inserted in there somewhere. With this, the only thing that I would say that people might have trouble with, and to be honest, I mean, I sort of had trouble with this in the book, is that it is kind of an all for nothing story, in that, like, you don't really know what is happening.
No.
Like, they don't give you any sort of a satisfying,
Oh, you're talking about the very end?
the very end. Like,
Yeah, I don't know about like you like it, but like for me, the last 1 minute, I felt was a bit of a dud and kind of had a bit of almost an art house film ending.
Well,
like,
this-
but
This is interesting because I have read several things and I've talked to multiple people, all of whom say that the author, Gillian Flynn, who also was a screenwriter, has said that she wrote a different ending for this movie, that it was supposed to be end differently than the book ended. And it doesn't. So I wasn't a huge fan of the way the book ended, even though I really liked the book overall. I was not a fan of the ending. And
Yeah.
and for some reason, even though I was expecting a different ending, it didn't bother me as much in the ending. But
Well, I know why it bothered me.
it's not very sad. I mean, it's
Well,
not.
no, it's because the film is like revelatory.
Yeah.
Like it's like layers of an onion, and it keeps unfolding, and you actually do find out what you want to know, and it's revelatory, and then it's like, oh, we don't know. Right at the very, very end, I was like, oh, come on, don't leave it ambiguous, because the whole film's been about unfolding and opening things up.
Yeah. I mean, and the other thing I think that kind of hit me watching it on screen versus reading it, you know, and I think it's been longer since I've read it than I think you just finished
Yeah, I
it.
just
So,
finished it a few weeks ago.
I read
Nice
it.
timing.
I read it almost a year ago. But like even my memory of it, I tend to remember basically up until I think she tries to like jump in the river or something like that. Like that's one of like she's gonna go and like commit suicide and like
What was she
blame it
practicing?
on him. No, I think it was when she like got her money stolen and she was like thinking I'm gonna go and jump in the river kind
Yeah.
of
I don't
thing.
remember her doing.
It was like a plan or
Yeah.
something that she had going on.
She had a plan to jump in. Yeah.
and that's about where my memory of like how awesome that book was sort of fades away, because of how sort of anticlimactic the ending is. But watching it on screen, I felt like it was kind of a neat. The ending of the checkmate was interesting, but I also felt like out of the two of them, she definitely won, and that he's the one that has to watch his back for the rest of his life
Kind of imprisoned.
because she actually killed someone. You know, he did not. She planned all of this crazy shit.
Yeah.
He just like dealt with it and defended against it.
Yeah.
I think my bigger thing with why I found the ending of the book and to some extent the movie unsatisfying is not so much that she one-ups him and that he's going to have this horrible life, but that all of the other people whose lives she destroyed and in one case ended,
Yeah.
that they get no comeuppance against her. That it's just like she just kind of wrecks all. It's not just him.
No,
it's
I
all these-
remember her ex with the thing. Yeah, no, I
yeah,
remember
it's all these other
that
people.
didn't come back.
There is, and that actually brings up, like I said, I think that they did a good job of knowing what to keep and what not to keep. But I think the one exception to that, she had in the book 3 people in her like 3 past experiences where she'd screwed people over.
Yeah,
There
where
was
she
the-
got better and better at
Right. There was like the Neil Patrick Harris character. There was a character who
the guy that she meets in the bar
right
that she like accused of
right.
rape.
And they're both in the movie. But of the 3, I thought the most interesting one in the book was a woman she knew when she was a teenager who like was her
Yes.
friend, and she had her do. It was like this really crazy story, and you just read it in the book at some point. But that was totally cut from the movie, and that was of the 3 stories. It's like that. That's the one I would have wanted them to keep. But I understand why they keep the other 2 because obviously Neil Patrick Harris's character comes back, and the rape story that directly plays into how she concocts her own story later.
And I honestly would have said that including that would have been fan service toward the book.
Yeah.
Because showing this pattern of her not only like screwing over her boyfriends, but like getting considerably raising the stakes every time she does it. In the movie, that's more important than establishing her ability to screw people over. Because I think doesn't the relationship with the girl that happens before any of the boyfriends, right? That's like an
I think
early.
so. Yeah, that's just like when she's like a kid. It's just like a friend of hers, and basically she.
But
just-
that's like where the pattern starts. She has a friend, and she basically like she like takes her identity, or
It's a friend who's less popular and less rich than she is, and so they become friends, but then she starts to get jealous of the friend, and so she puts an end to it and makes it look like the friend is doing all these creepy things, including convincing the friend to go up to Amy's parents and say, I like Amy so much, I'm going to kill her and become the new daughter, which the
That's
friend
right.
thinks she's just doing as a joke because Amy told her to, but the parents get really creeped
Take
out
it
by
serious.
But it really ruins this young woman's life.
she gets like expelled. And,
Yeah. So, but you're probably right that it would be fan service, but I just thought that was one of the more interesting stories.
I agree. Yeah, and for the book, I mean, that's one of the reasons why it's a good idea to read the book. That there's lots of good stuff tucked away in there. I apologize that this is an all male review. We originally wanted to have. We actually had two women in our group that were going to come and see it, and at the last minute we had to have them bail out. But
They were gone?
Girls are gone!
the girls are gone, and I didn't have anything to do with it. But I am curious.
Allegedly.
I am curious to know. Is a question I haven't. And my wife's actually read the book. I'll ask her when I get home. But I'm curious to know if women in any sort of, even just sort of a sideways kind of way, feel that the character of Amy is a little bit on the empowering side. Like if she's a little bit of a,
Like a queen.
like a cheap thrill kind of thing, like a bad girl you can sort of,
Right.
She's the female Kaiser Soze.
exactly. That's what I'm saying. Like she's somebody you can vicariously like fantasize about being that smart and that,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because she's the perfect woman.
Enjoy the complications.
There you go.
Well, that was Gone Girl. I hope you enjoyed our review. If you like the way we do these, please like the video, subscribe, check out all the written and video reviews at dalemaxfield.com, and thanks for watching.